These days, there's no fort in Fort Defiance. But back then there was, and it was built for the sole purpose of relocating the Dene. Under the supervision of General Kit Carson, the U.S. Army was gathering as many Dene as they could so that they could force them to a new place to live. A reservation. But the U.S. Army wasn't prepared for how many Dene would surrender after their livestock were slaughtered, their cornfields charred, and the peach orchards decimated. Food and resources were thin, even in that grim beginning. Nurses stationed at Fort Defiance distributed thin blankets to the prisoners as winter descended. For many weeks, the captured families waited, and the number of surrendering Dene grew. Finally, it was time to begin the long walk to Huelde, what we call Fort Sumner, in Bosque Redondo, New Mexico. To give the Dene captives some energy, the soldiers distributed rations of beans, flour, and coffee. The boys were about to make dough with the flour when a mean-looking nurse slapped their hands and kicked the flour to the ground. The white flour mixed with the dark red dirt, becoming inedible. She yelled at them. She and other nurses went around wasting flour and beans by tossing them to the ground and walking on them to make sure they were spoiled. Many went hungry that night. The next morning it became clear that the nurses had saved their lives, because those who had eaten the rations were deathly ill. The soldiers had laced the flour and beans with poison. The sick were left to die, clutching their stomachs as the poison worked its harmful medicine. The rest were forced to march in many long lines eastward, away from Dene Bekeya. Edward, I know you're not the biggest fan of visiting family on Dene Bekeya, but think about how badly all our ancestors wanted to return. When you listen to what happens next, remember they survived, thinking of you. They survived so that you could return to the 4 sacred mountains. On the trail, there was more hardship and death. Those that fell behind were killed. Elderly, young kids, even pregnant women. The soldiers wore thick jackets and leggings, while all our ancestors held on to the thin blankets that the nurses gave them in Fort Defiance. Their own clothes were falling apart. Some suffered frostbite on their hands and their noses, as well as their feet. Then came the river named Rio Grande, just outside the young city of Albuquerque, New Mexico. The younger brother noticed footprints in the banks heading into the roaring, icy river. Then he saw a soldier ride a horse into the frigid waters, which rose to his knees even with the added height of the horse underneath him. The soldier waved to the western bank and spoke in English. The brothers couldn't understand. One by one, the Dene in front of them walked down the hill and into the river. Our 2 ancestors didn't know how to swim. The Dene shivered as the icy river splashed on their exposed skin. They held their thin blankets above their heads so that they wouldn't get wet in the wintry water. The older brother tried to carry his younger brother across, but they were both exhausted after walking 200 miles from Fort Defiance. Their frail, starved bodies entered the polar waters, the younger brother crying the entire time. They hugged for warmth, but soon they had to try to swim. Our ancestor held his younger brother's waist, and the boy wrapped his small arms around our ancestor's neck. Their soaked clothes weighed them down. The elderly and the young people around them struggled against the strong current. Blankets of water smothered everyone. Eventually, a sound more disturbing than the screaming of the drowning grew. It was silence. Many bodies sank beneath, did not rise again, and drifted downriver. Those that no longer breathed increased in number. Halfway across, the river took our ancestors.